Okay, I'll look to my clerk to do the roll call.
Your Worship, all members are present with the exception of alternate member Stefan Walma. He will be joining in session.
Okay, thank you. Could I have approval of the agenda? Councillor Dolan.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cox that the agenda for September the 12th, 2023 be approved as printed.
Everybody's heard the motion. Any questions on the agenda? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council? Not seeing any. Presentations and deputations, we have none. So the consent agenda, if Councillor Burkett, do you have that?
Morning, Your Worship. Through you, moved by myself, second by Councillor Norcross. The Council Communications and Proclamations, August the 8th, 2023 to September the 11th, 2023, have been given due consideration, be received.
Any questions on the proclamations? All in favor? That is carried. And the adoption of the council minutes and confirmation of the Committee of the Whole reports. Deputy Warden.
Good morning, Your Worship. Through yourself, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Locks that the following council minutes be confirmed and adopted and the Committee of Whole reports be confirmed. Joint County Council and Committee of the Whole minutes, August 8th, 2023. Confidential Joint County Council and Committee of the Whole minutes, August 8th, 2023.
On those motions, any questions? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Presentations and considerations of special committee reports. We have none, but we do have the Lake Simcoe Regional Airport minutes. So I have a motion. If I have a move by, Councillor Norcross, sorry. If you can do those ones for me, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning. Through you, of course, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Burkett, that the minutes of the Lake Simcoe Regional Airport Board dated August 3rd, 2023 be received.
Questions on the Lake Simcoe Regional Airport minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. We have no officers' reports. I don't recall any notices of motion. We have no previous notices of motion. Closed session, we have none today. So the 18th Annual Wardens Golf Tournament in support of Give a Lift, it says here, a long-term care and senior services bus fundraising campaign is September 14th. It's not going to rain. Even though it says it is, I'm holding out faith. So anybody, I don't know if we can get there if you haven't got your tickets already. I believe we have room for a few more teams. Any other announcements? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Worship. Last week, our municipality in Penetangine suffered a building collapse, 145-year-old building. I just want to extend my sincere appreciation to you, the Worship, CEO Aiken, GM Fayez Baguette, and all of your staff for your support. Without it, we wouldn't have been able to get through this. We're still on it. 45 people have been displaced, but thankfully everyone had shelter, and I can't extend enough appreciation on behalf of my town. So thank you to everyone for your support.
The real miracle that nobody was killed in that, eh? It was so thank the Lord there. Any other announcements? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Snell.
Thank you, Your Warden. Through you to the room, I'd first like to just provide an update on Mayor Smith. He successfully came through his surgery and he's resting comfortably at home, and we expect him to be back at the table in the next coming weeks. Thank you, everyone, for your questions of concern. I also wanted to share some feedback. As many of you may be aware, during the Labor Day weekend, our community of Wasaga Beach was targeted once again by the highly mobilized group of unsanctioned car rally participants. On 3 other occasions in the past 3 years, our community has been overtaken by this group. They don't care about community safety or abiding by the law, and their sole focus is to disrupt and destroy. Our residents have tolerated non-stop sirens, helicopters going 24/7, and extensive damage to public and private property. Not to mention the hundreds of thousands of dollars in expense that is downloaded to the law-abiding taxpayers. The last event put OPP officers at risk when hundreds of them swarmed and jumped all over a police car with an officer and a police dog in it. How a community should have to endure this level of assault is beyond me, and how it is allowed to legally happen is even more mind-boggling. In order to prevent repeating past approaches, our senior team, along with council, have been busy preparing for this probability for the past several months. Through the combination of adopting new bylaws, successfully receiving a court injunction, and utilizing all of our resources, we were able to legally set up barricades at our borders in order to prevent them from entering. Because we took this shutdown stance, the over 500 cars dispersed and gathered in smaller numbers in other communities around us. And for this, please know, Wasaga Beach feels your pain. Through our trials and errors, excuse me, we have learned a lot, and I feel it's our responsibility to share this knowledge and plan of approach with other communities, because we know Wasaga Beach is not the only town they target. Just this past weekend, over 200 cars gathered in Brampton during their jazz festival, which naturally caused disruption to festival goers and forced police to redeploy assets, which potentially left other areas of their community at risk. We were hosting an April Wine concert on the Sunday of the long weekend. Is this their new approach, to swarm a community when they're hosting a major event and they are distracted and their resources are set? Where does it stop? In order to get to Wasaga Beach, they came through nearly every municipality and town in our county: Bradford, Innisfil, Angus, Springwater, Clearview, and Collingwood, to name a few. As a county, we need a plan. Imagine if 500 reckless renegades took over your community. How would you defend yourself? Consider how you would even try to close the borders of Clearview or Springwater. We shouldn't be left to feel helpless, and more importantly, they should not be empowered to execute. As a province, we need a plan. Therefore, I am putting forth a motion at our council meeting this Thursday, requesting for a provincial task force to be struck immediately to address unsanctioned rallies. Have we learned nothing from the Ottawa rally? At the provincial level, we need to, at minimum, review the Municipal Act, consider increasing enforcement powers for bylaw officers, and even revisit the charter if necessary to support police in shutting these lawless groups down. With this motion, each of your municipal councils and this county council will be receiving a letter asking for your support for this request of the province. I hope that our community can count on each of you and that this table to stand with us in solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. I would also like to acknowledge the members in our emergency response team: Andrew McNeil, Jerry Marshall, Danny Rogers, Carly Murdoch, Carla Findlay, Gerald Rue, Rachel Ivac, Sandra Watts, Dan Bell, and Chief Craig Williams. This team, along with others, left no stone unturned and every resource exhausted to not only keep our community safe and our county safe, but also allowed us to welcome over 12,000 residents and visitors on the Sunday to enjoy April wine on the world's longest freshwater beach. Please join me in thanking these rock stars for their efforts and to celebrate their success.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other announcements? Councillor Greenlaw.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to extend an invitation to everybody to attend the Oral Worlds Fair this Friday, Saturday at the Oral Fairgrounds. It's at the 15th, 16th Side Road in the 7th line. Come out for what is a true old-style agricultural fair. Tractor pull on Friday night and demolition derby on Saturday afternoon. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Van Staveren.
Thank you very much, Worship. Similar to that announcement, we will be in Clearview Township holding our Great Northern Exhibition on September 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, and many of our members in our council are volunteering as well. It's similar to the Oral World's Fair. It brings our neck of the woods into reality, we'll say, and it's a great opportunity. We have school kids and all the tractor pulls and all the fun stuff that goes with the fair. So please, if you're up in the Collingwood, Clearview area, please feel free to join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Lots. Alternate Councillor Blanchet.
Yes, through you, the Warden. I'd just also like to announce that this weekend, the 15th, 16th, and 17th, we invite you all, after you've attended the fair, to come and enjoy the Stonebridge Wasaga Beach Blues Festival. This is, I believe, our 11th year. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Bell.
Well, everybody's getting a plug, so the Ramona Fall Fair is as well this weekend. We have the horseshoe tournament, which is next to none on Friday night, and then horse pulls Saturday. Again, small fair, but it's fantastic, so I just want to put that out.
Councillor Cox.
I might as well get in on this too. On the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, the Coldwater Fall Fair is on. So you can go to Collingwood and then come over to our fair after, or vice versa. It's a rural farm fair. We have all kinds of cattle shows, sheep shows, goat shows, chicken shows. And the parade is on Friday, but unfortunately, the Simcoe County School Board decided that that would be a PD day, so the children can't march in it this year. But other than that, you're welcome to come march in the parade if you'd like. The theme is Western. Thank you.
Okay, it is that season, so I'll try and get to many of them as I can. Okay, if there's, yes, sir, go ahead, Councillor Gordon.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder that this weekend, this Sunday, especially in North Simcoe, we have our annual Terry Fox Run. And the theme this year is Keeping Terry's Dream Alive. And for those in North Simcoe that would like to participate, it's happening on Sunday, September 17th at Perkinsfield Park in Tiny Township. And this is a walk, it's a run or bicycle, basically any ability at your own pace. There's 3 different circuits. It's safe. There's no dodging cars involved. You can bring your pet with you as long as it's on a leash. And really, this is just a reminder that, on September 1st is the anniversary. After 143 days and 5,373 kilometers, which is, for the mile folks in the room, that's 39 miles. Terry was forced to stop running just outside of Thunder Bay, Ontario. And then he passed away about a month and a half later. So we continue to honor his legacy, raise awareness for cancer, and we ask anyone that's able to attend Terry Fox Run, even if you're not filling out a pledge card, that you participate in your community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, go ahead.
For something a little different, we're having in Collingwood this weekend on Saturday from 4 to 8 our annual art crawl. So there'll be over 100 artists, performers, and musicians. It's all in the downtown area, and it is a lot of fun. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamlin. Any other announcements? I hope everybody was writing these down. Councillor Norcross.
I got to jump in too. So our Bean Fall Fair is this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm going to be in the Smash Up Derby, so if you want to see somebody getting really beaten up, come on by. Thanks.
All right. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. In Mayor McDonald's absence, she'd be mad at me if I didn't mention that our Salmon Derby is coming up September 24th in Essa. So for any anglers or budding anglers in the crowd, there's usually salmon a meter long in the Derby. So.
All right. Perfect. Perfect. It's going to be a busy month for everybody. So, okay. Any others? Then I will go to Councillor Norcross for the confirmatory bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, of course, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. The bill number 7025-23 be enacted as a bylaw of the County of Simcoe.
All heard the bylaw. All in favor? That is carried. There's never any debate on that one. So now the adjournment. I would look for a mover that we adjourn. Councillor Meadows, second by Councillor Fowler. That the September 12, 2023 meeting of County Council be adjourned at 9:16. All in favor? That is carried. So with such a short meeting, we're just going to roll right into our committee of the whole. So if you can bring in our reps. Thank you, Councillor Measures. Announcements took longer. It's always nice.
That's been happening at our council meetings.
All right, just waiting for I see Ralph's here this morning, Ralph Sapola. Looks like they're all getting squared away. It's not very often you get a rainy day for the meeting. You don't feel like you have to be in such a hurry to get somewhere.
Adjusting to having.
Okay, I guess I'll call us to order, and I'll look for my clerk for a roll call.
Your Worship, all members from the City of Orillia. Councillor Durnford is in attendance. Councillor Capola is in attendance for Councillor Fallis. Barrie Councillor Hamilton. Orillia Councillor McIsaac. Barrie Councillor Ngusi. Barrie Mayor Nuttall is absent. Barrie Councillor Riepma is in attendance. Your Worship, I failed to identify that we have alternate councillors in attendance earlier. In place of Councillor Brian Smith, alternate Councillor Joe Boulanger is here. Alternate Councillor Henry Sander for Councillor MacDonald, and alternate Stefan Walma for Councillor Evans.
Okay, thank you. I'll look for an approval of the agenda. Councillor Dolan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by alternate Councillor Walma that the agenda for the September 12th, 2023 meeting of Committee of the Whole be approved.
Everybody's heard the motion. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest by anybody during this meeting? If you find yourself in that position later, please declare it. Presentations and delegations, we have none this morning. So with that, I've got Human Services, Chairman Leduc.
Thank you, Warden. Good morning, everyone. We're at Section 5, Human Services Ontario Works. We are at Committee Hall 2023-204, request for approval, Orillia Campus Leaseholds, SCS Division. So mover and seconder, please, for this. Moved by Deputy Warden Coghlan, seconded by Councillor Sandu. Questions, concerns with this agenda item? Seeing none, so I'll read the recommendation that CCW 2023-204 dated September 12, 2023 regarding request for approval, Orillia Campus Leaseholds Social Community Services Division be received, and the cost for leaseholds and equipment for the Orillia Social and Community Services Satellite Office as generally outlined in CCW 2023-204 be approved. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We're into Section 6, Human Services Land Ambulance. Mover and seconder for CCW 2023-233, Ambulance Acquisition. I got Councillor Stavern, and I've got Councillor Gordon, seconded. Question, concerns with this one? Seeing none, all right, I'll read the recommendation that item CCW 2023-233, dated September 12, 2023, regarding 3 ambulance acquisitions from York Region Paramedic Services be received, and that the acquisition of ambulances from York Region Paramedic Services as outlined in CCW 2023-233 be approved, and the necessary costs for the subject ambulance acquisitions be funded through year-end surplus or, if necessary, the Paramedic Services Contingency Reserve. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We're into Section 7, Human Services Long-Term Care Committee of Management. We have 7.1, CCW 2023-230, the Ontario Renal Network Operating Fund Agreement for the Trillium Manor. Move a second for this, please. Moved by Councillor Corbell, second by Councillor Snell. Question, concerns with this report? Seeing none at this time, okay. I'll read the recommendation that item CCW 2023-230 dated September 12, 2023 regarding the 2023-2024 Ontario Renal Network Operating Funding Agreement for Trillium Manor be received. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 7.2 Community Support Services 2023-2024 increase. Move a second for this, please. Moved by Councillor Corbell, second by Councillor Bell. Question, concerns with this one? Again, seeing none, that the recommendation that item CCW 2023-239 dated September 12, 2023 regarding Community Support Services 2023-24 increase be received. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Human Services, other matters for consideration. Any other matters to put on the floor? Seeing none, Warden, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Now, if Chair Dolan could do corporate services, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we're on Section 9, which is Corporate Services Consent, and there are 3 items on the consent list. 9.1, Annual Monitoring Report Summary for Landfill Sites. 9.2, the Transportation Master Plan Update Progress Report. And 9.3, the Blue Box Transition and Collection Week Change. Did anyone want to pull any of those items for discussion? Alternate Councillor Walma.
Thank you, Chair Dolan. 9.1.
Thank you. Councillor Bell?
Yeah. 9.3.
Thank you. So could I, sorry, Councillor Leduc?
We must pull them all. 9.2.
9.2. All right. So we'll start with 9.1 then, the Annual Monitoring Report Summary for Landfill Sites, and I'll pass it over to Alternate Councillor Walma.
Thank you, Chair Dolan. I have been doing my best to follow along with the waste management discussions. I know that in the past it's been a very colorful discussion, and there's lots of creative solutions from staff to minimize or maximize our room in landfills. I am curious. I think the last thing I read were about 2 years of capacity remaining in our sites. And our last direction from council, has that changed, or are we still no landfills in the county of Simcoe? I guess my question is, long term, what's the next step when those 2 years end? And yeah, let's start there.
Jim Elliott.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Dolan. Staff brought forward a series of strategic directions, or pathways we called them. There was 15 pathways to council previous in the year. We are not pursuing additional landfill sites within the county right now. Our goal would be to increase diversion rates, specifically in the organics program. We know that's the greatest opportunity right now to free up how much goes to landfill. So our focus in the meantime would be producing an environment that allows for ease of organic diversion, and pursuing with the ERRC, the Environmental Resource Recovery Facility. So at this point, nothing, but we are working with the province on advocating for a provincial role in additional landfill capacity, because over the last few years they have made the legislative environment really difficult for any individual municipality to embark on a new landfill program. So we think that they need to come to the table and help solve that problem.
I'm just going to go to Director McCauley and then back to you.
Good morning, Council. I just wanted to clarify that we have 3 remaining landfills, Collingwood, which will be completely filled towards the end of this year, like slightly into the new year potentially. The Nottawasaga site, that probably meets the timeline you're talking about, a couple years out, but the Oro site will be complete in 2027. So that's all been built into our long-range budgets, essentially, but it's not 2 years that we're out of capacity. It's actually 2027 is where we feel will be filled.
Go ahead, Alternate Councillor Walma.
Thank you, Chair Dolan. I appreciate the update. I guess curious. So it doesn't matter what we do, how much we divert. I mean, we have to do those things. We have to increase our green bin captures, recycling. We do have to get the ERRC done, all that kind of stuff. But eventually, we still run out of room, and we currently have no landfills in tiny township thing. So I'm just curious, when do we start talking about those solutions? Are we going to be looking at building a gasification plant? Are we just going to ship our garbage to Michigan? Is that, we're not worried about it yet because 2027 is 4 years away. When does that conversation start?
Jim Elliott.
Through the chair. As I mentioned, the 15 pathways are all going to be brought forward individually for council's consideration and direction to staff. So as we embark on new strategies in different areas, there would be lots of opportunity for council to weigh in and offer insights.
Councillor Cox.
Yeah, through the chair. On the Madani site, it says that staff are working with an environmental consultants on a closure plan for this site. There was a rumor that that site might be opened. Is that all it was?
I'll direct that to Director McCullough, please.
Thank you. Director McCullough.
And through the chair, thank you. You will note one of the 15 pathways we're looking to is potentially to reutilize that site as a transfer facility. It would not be reopened as a landfill. It would be as a transfer facility, and subsequent reports will be coming to council when we understand what that would look like.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions on item 9.1 or comments? Seeing none, moved by alternate Councillor Walma and seconded by Councillor Measures, that item CCW 2023-198 dated September the 12th regarding the 2022 annual monitoring report summary for landfill sites be received. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next is item 9.2, and I believe that was pulled by Councillor Duke.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions. A great report. There's a lot of data in here, and I know we're still going through the process. But I'm just concerned and looking for a question. Did we take into account the new numbers that the province has put out for especially the southern portion of Simcoe County, where we're being asked to exceed our growth plan for 2031 from, and I guess I'll refer to Bradford now because it was 50,000. We're going to go, they're looking at us to be at 68,000. So just wondered if this TMP took that into consideration, or did it just use the MCR numbers throughout the whole plan? Because I'm concerned that we, you know, when you look at the needs and opportunities, number one, the response to growth opportunities, and it says straightforward, and the southern portion of the county is going to have probably the largest growth. So just wondered how we took that into consideration. Thank you.
Jim Elliott.
Thank you. That specific question I might direct over to our Chief Planner, Nathan Westendorp, for an answer.
Thank you, through the chair. Those to answer your question, the TMP numbers that you have in this report and to date, the modeling does not incorporate those updated housing targets from the province. That's a fairly new thing coming from the province, so we haven't been able to accommodate that yet. We do anticipate a midterm, probably within the next 2 to 3 years, an update to the modeling anyway, because we're expecting new modeling results from the Provincial Transportation Tomorrow survey as well. So that would be a good time to accommodate those extra growth forecasts in the next couple of years anyway. It's important to stay on top of the modeling with growth coming our way, making sure that our results are validated as per the new growth numbers will be important in the next couple of years anyway. But no, the modeling results as of now, they just incorporate the MCR adopted numbers as adopted by Council last August.
Follow-up, Councillor.
Thank you. One more question. When looking at the map, the evaluation scores for candidate roads projects, it's on 25-102, and I look at the categories 0 to 10, and we look at the growth management, and I'm going to talk about ID 1, 6, and 7 just as curiosity to see how that score went across. Because when I look at it, I see the County Road 4 from 89 to 8th line is scored as a 5. The extension further from 89 to Barrie is scored as a 0 on the GM side. And then I look at the other end when I go to the environmental side, 89 to 8 is 5, and the County Road Barrie to 89 to Barrie is scored as a 10. I'm not sure how we can make that. It's the same cars coming down the road, so can you give me a little bit better analysis of how those numbers changed? And I'm only using those two circumstances because I see them right now, but I just kind of want to figure out how we, on that same road, how those numbers would vary.
Thank you for that question. I think I'll direct that to our Director of Transportation, Christian Miley, if he could help respond with an answer.
Thank you, and through the chair, good morning. Unfortunately, I don't know what the specific question is, Councillor Duke. I'm certainly happy to follow up afterwards in terms of the scoring and how that was done. It is certainly relative to all the roads. With respect to County Road 4 or some of the other ones you mentioned, I'd have to take a closer look to be able to answer that more directly.
Thank you, Councillor. Can you take that offline after the meeting with Director Miley?
Will do. One last question, then I'll turn it back over. But the post-2031, a little explanation on what we mean by post-2031. When we're talking about future roads, is there a time frame in there, post-31? I know you have the, you know, the short-term, medium-term, long-term, but what does post-2031 really mean?
Director Mealy.
Thank you, through the chair. So post-2031 is from 2031 to 2051. The short term is immediate to 2031, and then the next 20 years beyond that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions or comments for the TMP? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I just had one. When I was reading the document, it was very thorough. It was a fairly large document. There is a section on the cost per kilometer in a lot of different sections. And to go up and add a paved shoulder, it was somewhere between 80 and 100,000, I think, per kilometer in addition. I'm just wondering, and then the difference was another 20 to 30,000, and my numbers could be a little bit off, to go to a 2 meter so you actually have a safer. I'm just wondering, is there cost savings if we do go to the 2 meter as far as maintenance on that road as well that we could make up by doing the extra paving?
I think that's a Director Mealy question. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. Certainly there will be some cost savings to shoulder maintenance in the future. It's something that's hard to estimate, but adding the paved shoulder would certainly be a benefit for a lot of other reasons as well.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Hamlin and then Councillor Sandu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two questions. The first one is with respect to Highway 26, and certainly there's references in this plan to the capacity improvements required. So my question is through you, could there be a brief explanation to this House? What exactly is the plan for the expansion of Highway 26, whether in terms of widening to 4 lanes or even adding some passing lanes in the short term? And I raise this question in particular because that route is the major road connecting our county and from Barrie through to, of course, Collingwood, Town of Blue Mountains and beyond. It's not just employees going back and forth to work, it's the commerce route, it's where the tourists are traveling on the weekends, and it's really becoming a choke point. Thank you.
GM Elliott.
Thank you, through the chair. Obviously, County or Highway 26 is a provincially operated facility. We do know that they've had plans in the past for certain intersection improvements and other improvements which they've not delivered upon. In fact, that was part of our delegation to MTO at a recent AMO conference. I know that our Director of Transportation has been participating in discussions with MTO, and perhaps Christian would be able to provide a bit of an update on where things are at with MTO staff.
Thank you, through the chair. With respect to Highway 26, as you probably know, we have met as a group with the South Georgian Bay area municipalities, looking to build upon the work that was completed earlier for a Highway 26 alternative or an east-west capacity study. And it's also one of the recommendations that are included in the TMP to do further work to understand what the needs are and put some pressure on the province to complete some of that work that's outstanding.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. My second question is there's some expansive work here on the active transportation network, which I was really pleased to see. And I'm just wondering, I know that there are a lot of groups, I'll say, out there. We have in our community an active transportation trails committee that looks at the cycling networks and has lots of information on where needs are. What is the communication plan in terms of getting input from these kinds of groups? Thank you.
GM Elliott.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm going to ask our chief planner to speak about the public consultation process that has happened to date and in the next stages of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. Our consultation process over the last few years of doing this project has been fairly extensive. Every one of those groups across the county, and I know many of the municipalities have similar trails groups or cycling groups or active transportation committees, and they've all had the opportunity. Some have been a little more active in the project than others. Also, they vet through local staff as well. We do anticipate with some of these key corridors, it is an ambitious active transportation vision that we have in this plan, but we do anticipate doing further consultations with some of the key corridors as we look to engineer and design those corridors. So some of them are complicated. That's why they're left to be done, because there's significant amount of work and investment and design that needs to be done, and we'll be engaging with the local groups when we tackle each project as we go.
Okay, thank you. I actually just have one comment then. Thank you. Thank you for all this work. I'll just mention, I have noticed, and I have to confess I'm not a huge cyclist, although I love biking, that in our community there's a lot of people who come up just for the weekend to enjoy the beauty of the area. And Fairgrounds Road, which is not a particularly safe road because there's no shoulders, but it's hilly and beautiful. There's so many cyclists there. And I notice in the plan that it looks like the route that's proposed is the concession road immediately to the west, which is 6, and it's just markings on the road. So I just wanted to alert you to the use of fairgrounds and whether some thought should be given to a more safer route than just markings on the road because of the configuration of the roads. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to start by thanking the staff and previous council that worked on this document. It is very informative and very long, lots of information. What I wanted to confirm, and which I heard, and I just want to confirm, is we're being given targets by the province for the growth. And already most of the municipalities, if not all, we have our own traffic gridlock issues as is. If the growth is happening faster, being pushed by the province, and it concerns me that when we're looking at post 2031, which can go up to 2041 or beyond, that's going to even cause more issues. So I'm happy to hear that you're going to look at the new numbers that being released with the province, and I just want to confirm when the report comes back to council later on, that you would have those incorporated in these in the upcoming report.
GM Elliott, or
if I could address that. Like many long-term strategic plans, even though it might look out 20, 30 plus years, we will update that with much more regularity than that. In the meantime, this is the best and the most precise data to use in terms of modeling and whatnot. The other thing is that there's a balance between capital investments and the need. There's a lot happening with transit in terms of, changing work and commuting patterns. All those things have to be taken into account. So I guess my short answer is, we're going to come back in November with a presentation from our consultants and have a very thorough discussion with council on many of those details. But in terms of that strategy and that foundational assumption that we use, those are really designed to pivot as those changing patterns happen as well, and as we see what's actually come to fruition in terms of growth patterns and development activity.
Go ahead, Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you, GM Elliott. Thanks for that comment, and I really hope that we look at it, because the time is that we look outside the box and look at all that's coming towards us. Models are models, and they can be done again. Our job is to look for solutions, and when we know there's going to be an issue, we should put everything we have at our disposal to solve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Measures.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. And not to delay this any further, I just wanted to speak to Councillor Hamlin's comments about Highway 26. The House should know that the mayors and CIOs delegation of South Georgian Bay, which included some of our neighbors in Grey County, as well as Councillor Hamlin and the town of Collingwood, it's the Clearview Township. Of course, we did delegate at the AMO meeting with MTO to have a long discussion with them about the importance of Highway 26 in anticipation of the province investing and making an expansion on that facility that serves our whole part of the world. I do want to just speak briefly, though, about Councillor Hamlin, your comments about Fairgrounds Road. That road is, of course, entirely within the Township of Clearview, and I can assure you as the Mayor, it's a safe road. Our roads are safe. They do meet all of the standards, and they are well maintained by our staff. So your comments about considering that road to be unsafe are not welcome at this desk. Thank you.
Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Chair Dolan. Through you to General Manager Elliott. I was, having been involved with the fight with CN and the dismantling of the rail between Collingwood and Barrie and the establishment of the Barrie to Collingwood Railway, I was more than pleased to see the actions listed on page 48 in regards to the railway corridor. I know it's a long-term outlook. I just wondered if there was a rough time frame to it that I could have in my mind. And that's a simple question.
Jim Elliott.
Thank you. Through the chair, our short answer right now is no. There is not a time frame for when that higher order use might be returned to that corridor. Our goal right now is to protect that for the future. We're working with certain development industry or interest, as well as with the province on not only protecting the corridor itself, but the development patterns and pressures that are happening off corridor to make sure that we make sure there's adequate setbacks and things in place. Because there's not an identified use for a higher order transit network with specific infrastructure, we're finding it a little bit challenging to make sure that we could protect it, whether it's a 20-meter setback or whatever that might be. So we're working on a number of fronts, but our goal right now is to make sure that the corridor is protected and intact so that when the right opportunity comes along and a financial plan that makes sense, that it's available to return that to some higher order network.
Go ahead, Councillor Fryer.
Thank you. And just again to confirm that I'm very pleased with the efforts. I think it's worth the effort to look into that. But as you say, it's a long-term outlook, and trying to protect that corridor in the other ways is much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And through you, question just with regards to design standards. We see more wear and tear on our county roads, and with the costing in the report, have we looked at increasing our design standards to meet a more higher stringent for types of vehicles on the road than we would have in the past?
Jim Elliott.
Thank you. That's a terrific question, but I might direct this over to our Director of Transportation. I know there's a lot of experimental type things going on, and he might be best suited to respond to some of the current situations.
Director Mealy.
Thank you. Through the chair. In terms of design standards, we're always looking to improve and understand what the new technology is out there and available. In terms of the county road system, they do meet a pretty robust design standard that has been increased and changed over the years. With the amount of alternative techniques that we use to rehab roads, there's certainly an increase, and we're always looking to consider what the latest technology is and have a look at our design standards to make any adjustments as required.
Thank you. Councillor Leduc and then Councillor Hamlin.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I just want to go back to a comment by Jim Elliott on the fact that we're going to review this plan. I want to reiterate that this is a 2008 plan, and we're looking at the 2014 update. So it's 10 years between the renewal of this plan. So when you suggested to Councillor Sandu that we were going to review this plan a little bit more often, I really, truly hope so, because a lot changes in 10 years when it comes to growth and planning. So this plan has been, and I give it that we had COVID in between, so I accept that as a reason why we didn't probably update it. But I certainly hope that we do review it every 5 years, because there's a lot of projects on here that are pushed back a little further that I hope that we can review them and maybe move some of them up further. So just wanted to reiterate that this is a 2008 plan which was updated in 2014. It's 10 years in the making now, so thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hamlin.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify for my good friend in Clearview, Councillor Measures, I was not trying to suggest that Fairgrounds was unsafe. In fact, I travel Fairgrounds quite often myself. Unsafe from the point of view of 2 cars and cyclists on both sides. That's what I was trying to clarify, because there are no shoulders and there's steep ditches, but it's a lovely road. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So I think we'll call the vote now. Councillor Leduc and seconded by Councillor Michael Smith, that the item CCW 2023-166 dated September the 12th, 2023 regarding Transportation Master Plan Update project progress be received. All those in favor? That's carried. Great discussion. Thank you so much. And we'll move on to the third consent item, which is the Blue Box Transition and Collection Week change. And I believe that was Councillor Bell.
Yeah, just one point of clarification, if I could, through the chair to General Manager Elliott. What kind of savings are going to recognize? Because I understand they're going to pay for the actual processing, but they're going to also receive the benefits of the commodities, which is fairly low. We must be saving something on the transportation side, because the haulage is the highest cost of the recycling. It's been years since commodities have been high enough to cover that cost. Do we have any idea what we'll save on that, or are we continuing to pay for it?
Jim Elliott?
Yes, through the chair. I'm going to direct this over to our director, Rob McCullough, who's actually got some more details, because there are some implications further down the road than just the immediate. So I'm going to let Director McCullough speak to that.
Thank you, and through the chair. The savings are significant, be reflected in the budget process as we're coming forward, hit with increased costs in some other areas. But if we only take it to recycling, it's in the range of about $5 million to our benefit. The highest cost is actually the curbside collection, followed by the processing cost. Probably the haulage of those 3 is significant, while lower than the 3, but we'll no longer be responsible for all those costs. We will, as you can see from this contract, essentially be doing the work through our contractor, but we'll be reimbursed for significant, nearly 100% of those costs, and how that will be dealt with through the budget will be upcoming.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the Blue Box transition? Councillor Snell.
Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair. Not so much a question, just a comment or a suggestion as it relates to this item, as well as the previous conversation around the landfills. I think the greatest opportunity that we have is prevention and education. That would have a significant impact in terms of being able to lessen and reduce the amount of waste going into these locations. Has the team considered, through the communications team, putting together a really dynamic video that would educate people in regards to what is recyclable, what is green bin, food is not garbage, that sort of messaging that could then be shared to all of our municipalities and put out through our socials and on our websites, and also partnered with our 2 school boards, and really be intentional in helping to shape and share the message about prevention and education as it comes to waste and recycling.
Jim Elliott?
Thank you for the great question through the chair. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, things with our school target audience slowed down a little bit. They are coming back online in terms of our approach and our outreach. But I am going to ask that Rob McCullough speak to our outreach campaign, because I would agree that's absolutely important. And our greatest opportunity is to get that diversion rate, specifically through our organics bin, at a higher percentage than we see today. But having said that, I will plug the county as being some of the top, the second highest municipality in Ontario in terms of our diversion rates right now. So our efforts have been successful. Still some room to go, though.
Yes, thank you, and through you, the chair. We are increasing some of our promotion focus next year on organics. I would note that the promotion and education of recycling is now really actually going to be much better to be able to be province-wide. Essentially in 2026, they'll be stepping in and doing a lot. We will be responsible for that promotion until 2026. But in 2026, that's when there will be a lot more focus on province-wide education and ensuring that all the recycling programs in the province accept the exact same set of materials, where right now it's very difficult to do a province-wide education on that. With respect to organics, that's where we have our greatest capacity for being able to bring more material out. We have had a great increase, nearly doubling the tonnage that's going into the recycling with the change in from weekly to biweekly garbage collection was one of the major ones. You're right. We can consider more promotion education that's being built into the budget next year to try and do that, and return to our Learning and Living Green program with the schools that we're working at right now. I think historically we've seen some of our greatest gains in being able to work with the students and have the students bring it home to the families. So we're working on that as well.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Norcross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I recall a couple of years ago watching an educational video here in these chambers, and I can't remember what the raccoon's name was, but I thought that was extremely well done. I don't know, are we still using that educational video? Are we still putting it out there? And if new members haven't seen it, maybe we could share it with them.
Director McCullough.
Through you, Madam Chair, Max and Gus are the cartoon characters. We are looking to change the messaging as go forward. I agree they were very effective, but I think with our changing programs, we need to look for new spokesmen, and we're working with the communications department on how to approach that.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The question I have is with regards to the report touching on commercial and industrial collection for blue blocks. It indicates that the county may want to explore that option of continuing it, and I would urge that we actually continue that process, because my fear is most corporations probably will just throw stuff into garbage. And if we're talking about trying to save landfill capacity, any opportunity that we can do to make sure that we are collecting recyclables from the curbside, ending up going in the right spot, instead of a corporation saying, if I don't have that service provided to me any longer, or a commercial retailer saying, I don't have that service provided to me, it's going to end up in the garbage. So I think we really do need to explore that option through the county.
GM Elliott.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Staff couldn't agree more. We're a little bit concerned about the blue box transition because we have a fairly high capture rate with our ICI sector right now. We've offered, or council's graciously offered to the ICI sector that can accommodate waste collection through what we call the residential type suite. So the bins that we offer now, we collect. Through the PRO, the Producer Responsibility Organization, that's no longer going to be a responsibility for them to have to capture that. So we have some decisions as a county as to how we want to continue that level of service. We are currently lobbying with the province right now to see if they're going to reconsider that thought process. And in fact, that was actually one of our key points at our AMO delegation as well. We're not the only municipality to bring that forward as a concern. So we will continue to work on that, and we would hate to see that slip in terms of a diversion program.
Thank you, GM Elliott. I can also add that AMO is also advocating for the same. This extended producer responsibility has been circulating through the Ministry of the Environment for at least 5 to 6 years, maybe longer. And while we're talking in the minister's left ear, the producers are talking in the right ear. So it's been watered down a bit over the years, but we're moving forward and looking forward to the savings that it'll create for municipalities and putting the responsibility on the people who actually create the garbage. Then the only other comment I wanted to make was at the AMO conference, there was some councillors from down Essex Way, Essex County Way, like places like London just got an organics composting program, and places like Windsor as well. and they saw the name tags on some of our councillors and were, oh, we heard you have a wonderful organics program and we really want to speak to you. So we connected them with Director McCullough to tell them how we've been so successful with our diversion and our organics program. So thank you for taking the time to speak to them, Director. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then could I have that moved by Councillor Bell and seconded by, Councillor Snell, that item CCW 2023-196 dated September the 12th, 2023 regarding the Blue Box transition and collection week change be received. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Next, we'll move on to item number 10, corporate services. 10.1, the provincial gas tax agreement. Questions or comments on that item? Could I ask for a mover and a seconder, please? Alternate Councillor Sander and Councillor Fowler. The recommendation is that item CCW 2023-2025 dated September the 12th, 2023 regarding the 2022 and 2023 provincial gas tax agreement be received, and that the warden and the county clerk execute a letter of agreement with His Majesty the King in the right of the province of Ontario as represented by the Ministry of Transportation related to the dedicated gas tax for the public transportation program to allow the alignment of the program year with the provincial fiscal year, and that the necessary bylaw be presented for adoption. All those in favor? That is carried. Any other items for other matters for consideration for corporate? Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Chair Droll. And I just wasn't sure which to bring this up under, and I'm taking a chance that corporate services is correct. I was pleased to read yesterday the decision by the minister to postpone the facilitator examination and reconsider it, if I read correctly. And it's the facilitators for the other regions and Simcoe County. So my question was just going to be, is there an opportunity here to reinforce our position in regards to a facilitator for Simcoe County with the new minister?
CAO Aiken, did you want to take that one?
It's certainly always an opportunity. As you pointed out, the notice that went out yesterday was very clear that they were reconsidering options. So I would suggest probably not a bad opportunity for the warden to have a chat with the new minister and reiterate the previous direction of council.
Thank you, CAO Aiken. So seeing no other items for consideration, I'll pass it back to the warden.
Thank you, Chair Dolan. And now performance management with Chair Cox.
Good morning, everyone. We have a recommendation that the following consent items, having been given due consideration, be received. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Member Norris, Councillor Norris, second by Councillor Fryer. Does anyone have any of these items that they would like to speak to? Seeing, oh, sorry.
Just quickly, if I could, Chair, a comment on the AMO conference.
Yes.
It was wonderful to see so many colleagues there. In fact, this was the most well-attended AMO conference in the history of the AMO conference. And I thought London did a wonderful job hosting it. If you haven't already, you'll all be getting an evaluation form to fill out. Please do so. All suggestions are taken seriously. And for the next 3 years, the conference will be in the City of Ottawa.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Carried. Performance management 13.1, CCW 2023-219-2024. High-level draft budget assumptions. Recommendation that subject to deliberations in the affirmative, the proposed draft budget assumptions and directions outlined in item CCW 2023-219 dated September 12th, 2023 be approved and incorporated into the 2024 County of Simcoe draft budget. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Cabral. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Leduc.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have some questions and concerns with the definite 5% tax rate increase. That's an extreme number that is going to be a great burden on many, many people out in the county overall. It's many, many homes are one paycheck away from losing their home with the cost of living right now. So I had a question. I want to question. I certainly want us to look at ways to reduce this budget from 5% down to a reasonable number that makes sense for everybody in the county. And I look, and when you read the report, it's just a high level assumptions. But if we agree to a 5%, that's what they're coming back with. So I think we need to work on this and make sure that we look at ways, if it even includes some service delivery systems that we look at and cut some of them, we need to do that. When I look at the overall budget that we've been through over the past, and I've been here for 8+ years, and I've got some numbers that go back, and I'm going to share it. I have a graph and a chart, an Excel spreadsheet that shows the tax levy versus the overall tax levy. And when you go into that, you can see that the numbers are quite substantial. And I look at, I'm just going to go back and do a couple of numbers. I look at when I take the assessment, the tax levy increase for growth in assessment, and then I take for the tax rate that we did that year. So I'm looking at 2014. It was 2.1% for growth. It was 2% for our levy, tax levy, which worked out to 4.1%, and the CIP at that time was 2.4%. So I went through the 8 years. We've got it here. Councillor Sandhu and myself went through the numbers. And when you look at it overall, when you take those numbers and put them together, because this is what I've been saying for years, is that we have the growth in there, plus we have a tax levy. So, and they have that assumption in this budget also. So that overall assumption in 2023 will be about 6.4%. So you said, where's the numbers going? Like, why is this happening? And when you look at the actual, where the numbers are going, you can look at the reserves. And the reserve funds at the county has increased by over 184% in the 8 years that I'm looking at right now, or almost 10 years I'm looking at right now. So I think we need to do some work here. There's some funding here that we're taxed with our residents, and we all have our own budgets to deal with, and they're going to be very difficult in this year. And I just need to, people need to understand the numbers. And I worked these numbers out on the actual tax, the tax increase. So our budget is $200 million. Our budget is $200 million. So that's what I'm looking at when I look at these numbers. So I want to share the sheet, but I will share it right after this meeting because I want you to have the sheet and review these numbers because they are the factual numbers that's going on. So I wanted to make sure that I can't support a 5% increase here. There's no friends or buts. I think we need to sharpen the pencils and we need to get everybody out there and looking this budget over and making sure that we deliver a budget that's acceptable to the residents of Simcoe County. So when I just want to give you a factual number. We talked about the CMP, the Transportation Master Plan. Well, Bradford, West Gwillimbury has 51 lane kilometers of road out of the 1,800 kilometers. That's 3%, less than 3%. Let's just take a number that Bradford pays. Say we paid $1 million towards roads. That means I get $30,000 back in road work at 3%. So it's a little difficult for us to deal with, and I want to tell you that we have bared this burden for a long time. We pay quite a bit on this budget, and I want everybody to understand that we just can't afford that. And this is what I've been talking about for years. It's the growth and the tax levy. They're cumulative. So there's many numbers here that show you that we've been above the CIP. And if we want to follow the CIP, then the CIP should be around a 3% tax increase. That's where we should be at, nothing greater. So I'll send this numbers out, and hopefully when we deal with this, and I do have a resolution that I'd like to make an adjustment here because I don't support the 5%. I certainly support them looking at a budget that is respectable and find some ways to reduce the taxation in this county. So I hope I have everybody's support. I hope we don't sit here and just support a 5% free-for-all for a budget. I think we need to look at the numbers and really adjust them because we already have pressures in our own communities. I can tell you right now I'm going to have big stresses in our community to keep our budgets down. I delivered a 5.6% budget last year in 23. Our numbers for 23. It was difficult. We had to. We had no choice, and I want to tell you all that I'm sure we're all dealing with that same stuff. So I hope we can all come together and really construct a budget. So I will put a new motion, an amendment on the floor, if you don't mind, if further comments or whatever. But I'll put a new amendment on the floor.
We'll have some further comments first.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Warden.
Well, just to start off, I would like to remind Councillor Leduc that it's not Bradford that's paying the bill. We county bills per household. So it's per household is how we bill on our taxes, and certainly in Ramara Township, we have a breakdown. You know, there's county taxes, school board taxes, Ramara taxes. So we don't bill Bradford any different than we do anybody else. We bill so much per household if you're a Simcoe County resident, and the tax rate is the same per household. But what are you looking for? And I guess I'll wait for your motion to come in later. So you'd like a breakdown, maybe a list of services we could reduce or services we could cut to help. I assume that's what you're looking for in your motion? Okay, thank you. I'll wait for that to come at the time.
Councillor Ball?
Bell?
Bell.
Sorry, that's all good. I guess, Councillor Leduc, I guess I need more clarification, and maybe it's going to come with the motion, but saying 5% is unreasonable and to relook at it doesn't give a definitive answer. I'm wondering what it is exactly that you're asking them to come back at. If it's 3.5, is it 4? I'm not sure if you're listening or not, but okay.
Yeah, my motion is going to come back at 3%.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, go ahead. Thank you. Councillor Dolan.
Thank you. I think that even though the news that we received yesterday about the facilitators, I do believe that that it's going to be delayed, but we probably will end up with a facilitator. That's how I'm approaching it at this point. You know, which could have a major effect on budgets, but at this point, I would be looking not to decrease any services that the county has. The services that we, in fact, I'd be looking for an increase in service when it comes to leaf and yard waste, which is, I know, something that Councillor Leduc has advocated for in the past as well, and I certainly hear a lot of comments about that especially in our urban areas. So I'm happy to hear what Councillor Leduc feels that we're doing that we don't need to do anymore.
Anyone else have any comments? Did you want to speak, Trevor? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to give a little bit more color to the report that I put in front of you. We take it very seriously in terms of what we're trying to estimate for the budget for the year. And I included the trend in the CPI index to show that in general we've followed the CPI. Up until the last, say, 3 years ago, we were bumping around CPI. We would go a little bit ahead or a little bit behind, but we kind of catch up, and there wasn't much of a gap. The gap started largely in 2020, in 2021, because we took that direction from council during COVID to cut back and to really, pare back our budgets and to not follow inflation. That hit us very hard that year and the next year. So now we're in the point where we've got a gap, and we've seen significant increases in the number of areas. And I'm sure your municipalities have seen it as well. We have transportation costs that have gone up significantly, facilities costs, utilities, all of that. We've kept it back as much as possible. Certainly growth has helped. Growth does bring some dollars in, but it doesn't affect the current taxpayers. So that's not an increase on the current taxpayer. It's in above, and it does bring cost. Eventually it does. And so we're seeing that now. We're seeing that our costs are increasing. We talked about solid waste recently. There are costs built into the contract that we have that match inflation, will be at or above CPI. So those will not go away. And we did have a restrained budget going into this year following a significant increase in inflation. But you'll see that even then, CPI is going to exceed the increase that we did put in last year. And I've broken it down into two pieces. One is for the asset management component to try and keep ahead of that, and also the operating costs, which is about a 3% increase. My concern isn't just for this year, but if we don't implement a larger than kind of 2% increase, we are going to pay the price sometime soon. Bradford, West Gwillimbury has seen that too, and I agree with Councillor Leduc there. They were in a position where that was not an option. They had to really look at a significant increase because of the way their budgeting was. I don't want the county to be in that position. I'm trying to get ahead of it and stay ahead of it. But I will take direction from council, and I thank you very much for your interest.
I need to apologize to the city reps. This is performance management, and you're not included in that. If it was human services, it'd be fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of comments. The staff report is asking for 2% asset management and 3% operating, as the general manager mentioned, so a total of 5%. When we're asking and requesting colleagues to look at it, we're not asking you to look at it just for Bradford. We're looking at it as county councillors, because this tax increase, 5%, is going to affect residents in Tiny, Tay, Bradford, Innisfil, everywhere. So I'm looking at it as a resident of Simcoe County. When we're looking at the staff report, the narrative in the staff reports is towards the tax increase and not the overall levy increase, as it was mentioned earlier. If you look at the chart that shows the increase have been below that of Ontario CPI. However, the true picture, when you look at the true comparison, the tax levy increases as a percent to CPI has been greater. It seems that the most years the total tax levy has grown at a rate greater than the tax of CPI, rate of the CPI. So some numbers I wanted to share is if you look at the index over the same period, so CPI index is 129.2 and the total tax levy index is 151.4. So this means the tax levy has grown by 75%. And we talked about, I heard about the reserves earlier, which has grown from 2013 to 2022 over the same period, 184%. $140 million. So we're asking to give our residents of Simcoe County, not Bradford, Simcoe County a break, because we are going through tough times. When we consider this, I would like my colleagues to look at this, please, because this is not about Bradford. This is about Simcoe County residents, because right now, the way economic pressures are, everyone is hurting. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment, really, more than anything else, based on Councillor Duke's comments with respect to the assumption of 5% or more. I just find it a bit of a struggle to automatically make the assumptions based on the report. I would assume that there would be further, more detailed information coming to us specific to actual numbers. So I would be reluctant to simply support this based on that particular number. So I just wanted to make that particular comment. Going into it, it makes the assumption that it's going to be 5% or more, and I don't know whether or not that would be the case. And because there's not sufficient information here for me to make a detailed and informed decision on it, I wouldn't be prepared to do it either today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Leduc.
Yeah, so that's exactly why I'm suggesting a different recommendation, because this one says, you know, that as of that the subject deliberations in the affirmative, the proposed draft budget assumptions and directions outlined in this report, dated September 12th, be approved and incorporated into the Simcoe County draft budget. I've been here for 9 years. I know what that means. It means we're coming with a 5% increase. So we either make the decision now to drive staff to say, look at services, look at whatever, find ways to reduce this overall budget assumption, because this is what we're driving. They're being told with this recommendation that they can come back with a budget of 5%, and then we'll debate it then. It's difficult to debate it then. I think we need to, and I tried last budget to remove $1 million out of it, and it was at the last minute, and everybody was upset that I was doing that at the last minute. I'm ahead of the game. I'm trying to be ahead of the game and tell everybody, let's look at this budget and let's be a little bit more firm on what we want to do. So I have a recommendation, and I gave it to the clerk, and I don't know if the clerk wants to put it up or. It's up to you. I can read it myself, or oh, okay. If they're not over, I just, again, I want to make sure that everybody understands that recommendation says that we're okaying a assumption of 5% for a draft budget. So it's a difficult thing to reduce after. So I would like staff to come back with some different alternatives in that assumption.
Okay, oh, sorry, Councillor Joan.
So just
Councillor Walker,
procedurally, I believe, Judith, you did have a mover and a seconder for the motion that's on the agenda. Okay.
Councillor Walker, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering if changing the wording to upset limit of 5% would be helpful.
Well, obviously, he doesn't want that one. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My concern sitting in this House is we can't undercut. We can't look at anything less than what we had last year, in my opinion. If we're looking at a tax increase this year, we had 3.5 last year, then anywhere in a range of 3.5 to 4%, I think, is something that we can live with. But we cannot reduce what we're looking at from last year. We need to, as the GM indicated, we need to stay ahead of things. And if we start undercutting ourselves, we're going to be in a far worse at the end of the term than we are here. So if we're going to be looking at any reduction, I can support a reduction of 1%, but I can't be looking at 2.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Chair Cox. When I read the motion, it makes reference to the report. In the report, I'm keying on the line that says suggested to be in the range of 2% for asset management and 3% for operating expenses. I certainly would like to see the smallest increase possible, but I'm not assuming that 5% is being locked in, and therefore I'm prepared to support the motion as it stands.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Capel.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my last comment would be based on the numbers and based on the reserves and the percentage increase there. I mean, I'm a pretty simple guy when it comes to numbers sometimes, but it would indicate to me that taxpayers of Simcoe County have been overtaxed for the last 12 years. That's what it indicates to me. And it would also indicate to me that the easiest way to resolve that would be to actually reach into that envelope of money and give the taxpayers a bit of a break. That's the simplistic term. The other side is obviously that nest egg is very, very important to the well-being of Simcoe County going forward. But I do understand where Councillor Duke is coming from, and I do appreciate his amendment.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Madam Chair, you do have a main motion moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Cabral. I believe Councillor Leduc has an amendment. He will need a seconder, and then you'll vote on the amendment.
Okay. Go ahead. Do you have a seconder? And the amendment is?
We can display the proposed amendment.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I need a mover and we've got a mover and a seconder, so we'll vote on the amendment. Okay, go ahead, speak to it.
So I just want to speak to this, and I want to go back to how the county works on there, and in this report it talks about the CPI. So this is in line with the CPI for 2024. That's where we are. We're at 3.7% right now with CPI, but as you know, the Bank of Canada has held the tax rates, and they want it down by 2%. So we will be hopefully in that range of 2% in 2024. I'm pretty sure we are. When you take out the high adjusting commodities, there's about 12 of them in there. If you take that out, our actual CPI is below pre-pandemic levels. I follow numbers pretty good when it comes right down to it. This is what I do for a living. We budget. So I want to go back to what Trevor talked about and how the county has been able, we're growing and it's paid for things, but what does the county deliver in service-wise, really? We deliver transportation, we deliver waste, we deliver social services, we deliver all sorts of areas. But those other areas, when it comes to social services, are actually supported by the provincial government. That part of the budget is supported by the provincial government. We pay a portion of it, but a lot of it is supported by the provincial government. So there is some money in there. But when I look at transportation services, we have 1,800 lane kilometers out there. We haven't adjusted those lane kilometers in 10 years. They're the same. But we have growth. We have growth. They're paying. Our waste pickup. Yeah, we do waste pickup, and we're growing with waste pickup. But every tax bill has the waste pickup in there. So we're growing, and that's being covered in that tax bill already. That number's there. It's $330 per household to pick up waste. So that's already covered in the tax levy. So when it comes to things outside what the county's doing, we don't do water. We don't do wastewater at the county. We provide those services at our own level. So the county's sort of services they provide are already picked up in the tax levy because we haven't really changed our lane kilometers, and our waste is actually picked up, and it's already picked up in the tax levy. So 3% is in line. That's above what the CPI is going to be for 2024. We're driving the 2024 budget. I'd like to know what we're running at now in 2023 for surplus, because every year we have a surplus, and we put that into our contingency fund. So this is something that I think is respectable. It's a tough number. It's a big number. Don't get me wrong. 3% is a large number for me. That's a large number, but I think it's right in line with CPI. It's right in line with the inflation rate that's coming for 2024. So I ask for support for this. I think it's still a great thing. And then staff, let them come back and tell us we can't get 3% because of this. I'm okay with that. But I'm saying drive to 3% if you can. If you can't, come back and tell me why. That's all I'm asking. If they need 5% overall in the end, it's about 32 people voting on 5%. But if we drive them down to 3% and see if they can do it, if they come back and say we can't do it, I'm okay. Give me the explanation why you can't do it. All we have is assumptions in this report. This is just assumptions. I need to see more data. So I'm in support of making sure that we have them go to 3%. And if they can't do it, please come back and tell me why.
Okay, I have some questions here. Councillor Anderson, Councillor Greenlaw, Warden, and then Councillor Norcross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I'll reiterate my comment a few moments ago that I can't support at 3%. I could certainly do 3.5 or 4 because, again, realistically, we do need to see an increase. Through to the GM, Wilcox, if, and this is hypothetical, but if we were going to maintain a 3% budget increase, would we be seeing a reduction in contributions to reserve funds, or would we be seeing a draw from reserve funds, or how, without limiting any of our services, where would some of the funding have to come from?
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for your question. There are a number of potential tools that we could look at. Debt would be increased for sure. The reserves could be drawn from. I do want to remind Council that a majority of the reserves are put aside for specific uses, so we would have to look at if there are other reserves that we could tap into. So they could be an option in terms of that, but we would also have to look at what services we're delivering and other things that we're supporting as to whether we could meet that. The way the motion reads, it directs us to a specific target. If, as is outlined, you wanted to see something in terms of a range, then we could look at a range. But this locks us in at a specific target. It's a little different than saying, do your best and see where it lands. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Greenlaw.
Thank you, Chair Cox. I do appreciate Chair Leduc's position and understand that he's driving for efficiencies, but without cutting services, and I think our staff does the best they can to keep the budget increase in line. I don't believe I will support the 3%. That is a hefty and an aggressive cut. I would support a motion to Councillor Walker, who suggested up to, and we try to put the limit not to be exceeded. But I think currently our staff county tries to minimize the impact, and we have to at least give them the respect that we think that they are doing that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Norcroft, and then Councillor Coghlan, and then Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. With all due respect, I know Councillor Leduc said there was some wiggle room or do your best, but when you read a motion, you pass a motion, and that specifically states that no more than 3%. So our staff do not have an option to go to 3.5, 4, or even 3.2. So I'd certainly like to see the flexibility put into a motion where they can explore other options. But if we pass this the way it's written, they have to come back at no more than 3%. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Warden Clark.
Thank you. I can't support the motion the way it's written, no. If it said, 3% by staff providing a list of possible cuts or reductions, because there is programs that we're involved in that we don't need to be. We have a bursary program. We fund our local colleges and universities. That's not mandated. We fund the hospital alliance. That's not mandated. But to just say you got to come back with 3%, Trevor's already come back with the lowest. He can come with maintain the level of service. So we're already at the lowest. So now council has to decide what programs we want to cut, if any. So if this motion included the fact that we're looking now at cuts or reductions in services, then sure, we'd have a list. We could vote on that list when it came back and say, you know what, yeah, we can cut that. We can this and that. But we're at the point now where if you're looking to reduce it, then what we need staff to do is bring us a list of programs that we can either cut or cut back on. And without that being in the motion, I can't support it. You're just saying come back at 3%. Well, that involves cuts. Staff don't have the authority to do that. These are programs that council have put in place. So if we want to cut those programs, it's got to be done by this House. So it's either got to include a list, or I like what Councillor Walker said, with an upper limit of a certain percent, and we go from there. So I'm going to need an amendment to that motion that it include a list of cuts. I see it's the only way you can get there. So.
Okay, Councillor Coghlan.
My comments have been made.
I'm sorry, Deputy Warden Coghlan.
No, my comments have already been made.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sandhu, and then Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to remind my colleagues here, the original motion is asking, under the assumptions, it's asking you to basically approve the limit up to 5%. Guess what? They will come back to 5%. You give someone let's say, hey, go ahead and only spend up to 20. They're not going to come back and say, I spent 50. All we're asking is for staff. We're not asking for any service cuts. We're asking them to go and sharpen their pencils, not cut any services, but look for waste. That's all we're asking. And the way I see it is this is no different than what the other motion is. Maybe we change the wording that says no more to something that's, acceptable to the colleagues here. But how can we sit here and say, go ahead, we're okay up to 5%? I want them to do their work. I want them to look into this and come back with, say, hey, we looked at every little penny, because that's what we do at our each respective municipality level. We look for pennies. That's what we're elected for. And I can't come here and close my eyes and not do the same when it comes to county council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gordon, then Deputy Warden Coghlan, and then Councillor Belanger. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder that, we're not approving a budget at 5% increase. We're just giving this staff some breathing room. That whittling down of the estimates that we see on that budget is something we're going to do collectively. I don't know that it's worthwhile to try and undertake that now by kind of cutting the legs out from under staff. Let's give them this number, and then we'll get to the hard work of saying, if they come in at 3 on something and 3.2 on another, well, we can start looking for those savings and maybe say, you know what, let's skip that this year, or let's push it off for a year or not contribute to this reserve. But the reality is, I think we're facing what by many predictions of people far smarter than me is a recession, a housing bubble that's going to collapse, that's effectively is collapsing now in many ways. We can't compel our contracting partners that we've moved mountains to try and get their stuff approved
we can't compel them to put shovels in the ground. There just is not a market right now. We're looking at unsustainable interest rates, which will likely result in quite likely a tsunami of more social service needs. We're going to need more supportive housing. Homelessness prevention initiatives are going to continue to be relied on as more people find themselves, one paycheck away from being homeless. We have to worry about street outreach to deal with the tsunami of people that are, going to be folded in half like tacos as soon as we get that xylazine in our drug supply up here. We're going to be looking like in Pennsylvania and other cities that are lost to this already. It's coming from out west. There's going to be increased pressures for us across the social housing and emergency services spectrum. And of course, our aging infrastructure, well, it's not aging well. We're seeing buildings collapse in our small towns. 180-plus-year-old buildings that just are falling apart. These are going to put tremendous burdens on the taxpayer, not only from a place to live, but the cost to rebuild these things in our communities and the cost of insurance, if people can even get insurance on them. We're staring down a barrel. So I can understand how, from one perspective, if we're not careful with raising our tax rates in our community and at county, then we could potentially be tipping people over the edge, over that precipice, into the very issues that I'm talking about. But I think, in fairness, a lot of these things are going to happen with or without. I know we're going to come up with a responsible rate no matter what. I have just sort of blind faith in that. But the social issues that are starting to unravel in the fabric of our society are going to happen regardless. And I don't know that us nickel and diming right now and hamstringing staff to come back with what should be a responsible budget is really the best solution. I think the time to do that is on the council floor when we have that draft in our hands and we can start making the red lines and the changes we'd like to get us down to a number we're comfortable with. I don't think we're selling ourselves short by giving staff direction that's recommended at 5%, although I'd sure hope we don't end up at 5%.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gordon. Deputy Warden Coughlin. Okay. Councillor Belanger.
Yes, thank you through the chair. As an alternate, I certainly probably don't have the in-depth information that you have on an ongoing basis, but there's a lot of concern raised about the financial burden we're putting on all our residents, but I look at a lot of the services that are provided by the county are from our most vulnerable citizens, and that group has grown exponentially. And when we certainly striving towards 3% is a great thing, but when we look at the 3% costs, if you look, for instance, at affordable housing and look at how that's increased to build over recent years, it's far beyond 3%. So again, the decisions you make here is how we support our most vulnerable citizens. And, for the first time in small communities, we're seeing the working poor go to food banks. The clients at food banks have doubled. Again, I understand, that 5% is a burden on many people. But there's many people within our county that enjoy very good services at a very affordable rate, and I think we do have to look after our most vulnerable citizens to the best we can, and that is growing far more than 3%. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fryer and then Warden Clark.
Thank you, Chair Cox. Again, I'm going to note that I am not in support of the 3%. In addition to what I mentioned earlier, I can't support just a single number. The reason we're talking 5 is because it's indicated at 2% for asset management, and that's where General Manager Wilcox has talked about getting ahead of the game. I'd need to see numbers and understand. I'm fully aware of exactly what Councillor Leduc mentioned about the increase in reserves over the last 10 years. And I'd need to look at asset management and decide if it needed to be 2% or not. If we were to accept the motion as put forward, the amendment as put forward, what's to keep staff from just coming back with a 3% increase in operating expenses and saying they're not going to do anything with asset management? I don't know that would be the best step either. So just as I said, I'd need to, I'll reinforce that I'm not saying 5% is a lock. I'd like to see ways to get it down. I'm looking at it as saying it's in the range of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Warden Clark.
The only thing I'm going to add, and I think we need to move on now, we've had a decent discussion on it. I mean, the motion doesn't go far enough. If you're looking for cuts, then you've got to tell us that that's what you want. Cuts by including a list of cuts or services and staff's recommendations of what's cuts and services, and in council this floor can make a decision on that. I mean, I know how we do budget at home in Romare, and it is, yeah, we're presented with a number, but after 23 years on council, I already know what services we're doing that aren't mandated, and most of my council knows that, and we sometimes start, okay, so much for the grants program, and you start throwing out the non-mandated stuff because we know that. I doubt anybody here, including myself, has a handle on all the non-mandated services we deliver here. I mentioned a few with the education. The busing service is links. That's not mandated. That's something we uploaded and took on. Economic development, our airport. Again, the social housing was mentioned. We have way more units than we're required. Our nursing home, we have more units than required because this council has chosen to do that. So I need the motion to go farther. If you want my support, then it should say, which will include a staff recommended list of cuts or reductions in services. At least now you're giving them the tools to say, okay, we can hit your 3%, but we won't be expanding the busing. In fact, we'll be cutting some of it. We won't be doing this anymore. We're not going to have a bursary program, a list of those, and now the floor can decide. But to say just make it 3% with no direction to staff, I can't support the motion. Thank you.
Very much. Councillor Duke.
So I'd be more than happy to have an amendment to that, certainly to include, to get down around 3%, to look at service cuts. So, your Warden, I think you had said something, and if our clerk could draft something there, I'd be more than happy to set that in the vote. Let me go back to, it's 2% I'm asking. So we're at 5, I'm saying to reduce by 2%. That's $4 million. That's $4 million of the $200 million budget. We have a surplus of 100. We've over $140 million extra in the reserves from 2013 to 2022. 184% increase in our reserves. $140 million more in our reserves than we had from 2013 to 2022. So we're talking $4 million out of the reserves. We're not even denting the reserves. That's not even 10%. That's less than 5%. So we're talking about looking at, when he said we have to have service cuts, we really don't need service cuts. We just need to dig into reserves and supplement some of our costs by picking up $4 million out of reserves that we're accumulating. Reserves are there to be used in a rainy day. They're not there to be just accumulated forever and let them sit there. So there's a lot of issues out there that we have to deal with. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of social issues out there. But at the same time, if we're going to put people out of their houses because they can't afford their tax rate anymore, their tax bill at their house, it's no better. We're just driving more people to homelessness. I'm a retired pensioner. I have a fixed income. My income didn't go up by 5%. So I'm talking for all people that are retired and have a fixed income. We have to deal with things properly and make sure that we don't drive people out of their homes because they're that close to being out of them. So I support this, and I'm good with that, and to propose service cuts. So if we're good with that, I'm just asking that we make staff do a little bit extra homework, because this report was all based on assumptions, just assumptions, large assumptions.
Okay.
I don't have a crystal ball, so thank you.
I'm going to go with Councillor Dolan, alternate Councillor Walma, and then that's it.
Thank you. Through you, Jim Elliott, or maybe Director Millet, how much is the project to widen and reconstruct County Road 4 through Bradford and Innisfil costing the county over the next few years?
Thank you. Through the chair, County Road 4 all the way from Bradford to Innisfil is approximately $160 million, with the Bradford portion being half of that.
Okay, Councillor Walma.
Thank you, Chair Cox. I can't support the motion. I couldn't support it originally, and especially when we add the portion of getting staff to propose service cuts. That's not staff's job. That's our job. That's our house's job. We propose the service cuts because we're the ones responsible to the people that elected us. There's a lot of a lot of information that we don't have because we are working on assumptions. We've been talking about the reserves growing. I haven't been here for a couple of years, but I also know that our debt has also been growing. I don't know what rate that's at, and those numbers need to be looked at together, not individually. I'm fine with the original motion. I will not be supporting the amendment.
Okay, I think what I'm hearing, okay, there's more. No one's called to vote. Okay. Councillor Burkett.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I think we've had great discussion. Why don't we just call the vote either on this motion or the original motion?
Okay, we have to call the vote on the amendment first. And I'm hearing that most people think that County Council should have the opportunity to see everything and make the decisions themselves. And I'm sure staff has heard today that they're looking for cuts. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I just wanted to confirm that what Councillor Leduc was proposing is highlighted on the screen.
Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. We have the motion in front of us of the amendment. We're voting on the amendment. All in favor? To no more than 3% and to propose service cuts. Are you in favor of that amendment? All in favor?
Madam Chair, what you see on the screen below the word amendment is Councillor Leduc's amendment. So that's what the vote is.
That's what we're voting on. That staff be directed to prepare the 2024 County of Simcoe draft budget such that the total tax levy increase is no more than 3% and to propose service cuts. If you are in favor of this amendment, vote, please. All opposed? Okay, not passed. So we will now go to the original, which is that the proposed draft budget assumptions and directions outlined in item CCW 2023-219 dated September 12, 2023 be approved and incorporated into the 2024 County of Simcoe draft budget. All in favor? Opposed? That motion was carried. Thank you very much. Yeah, I know. So any other matters for consideration in performance management? Seeing none, I hand it back over to the warden.
Thank you. Thank you, and a good hearty discussion leading into the budget. So now we have no closed session today, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Councillor Greenlaw, that the September 12, 2023 meeting of the Committee of the Whole be adjourned at 10:40. Oh, if I wait 4 seconds, 10:45. All in favor? That is carried. All right, and I'd ask members of council to go in the little room outside if you haven't already met Jen and Gabby to get your jackets fitted so that we know and pick up your county